of Mystery. Boosters.
Hello, greetings, and welcome, fellow travelers. For today, we are embarking on the very first of a 24-part series, which is entitled Tales of Mystery Boosters. And in this series, I am going to be going over this box of mystery boosters, which I purchased right before this little quarantine situation started to develop itself. I've decided instead of drafting it, I'm going to open a booster, and then what we are going to do is talk about each card and how it, and see where it goes. Who knows? This should be fun. Worst case scenario, I just end up having a whole bunch of cards that I get to play with. But this should be fun. We're going to start off with white. White is the first thing that you come to. And this is a common. It is a 2 and a white. It is entitled Desperate Sentry. And it hails all the way from Eldritch Moon. Eldritch Moon. That's when Emrakul came back after her two big Eldrazi buddies got burned to death by Chandra in Battle for Zendikar. I actually wasn't playing Magic the Gathering for quite a while, and then started playing with Battle for Zendikar when a good friend of mine, he wasn't a good friend at the time, but we became really good friends because he started playing Magic around Tarkir and introduced me to Commander, EDH. Now this card right here is a human soldier. He's a 1/2 for 3. When Desperate Sentry dies, put a 3/2 colorless Eldrazi horror creature token onto the battlefield. And it has Delirium, which says that it gets +3/+0 as long as there are 4 or more card types among cards in your graveyard. So I imagine the idea with this card was to fit it in with a either a discard or a sacrifice package. This might work really well in an aristocrats style deck. I would imagine this would be really good with like Teysa Karlov, because then you would get 2 Eldrazi creatures, and it would just be a great sack outlet or token generator with an outlet. Not too bad. Interesting. A 1/2 for 3 though seems a little high, but you know that tends to happen. Core Firewalker is our next card. He is a white. He's a 2/2 with protection from red. That's some great stats right there. 2/2 for 2. That's a bear. And then you have a core soldier. It has protection from red. Whenever a player casts a red spell, you may gain 1 life. That's a pretty baller uncommon right there. 2/2 for 2 with protection from red and very anti-red type of effects. I would definitely drop this into like a Thalia style deck. One that's really hate bears. This would be a very good hate bears deck, especially if you know who you're going against. This would also work really well in like a Boros strategy. If you're doing damage to all of your creatures with red spells, protection from red saves your creatures. So you're wiping out everybody's creatures except your own, which happen to have protection from red. So that can also work to your advantage. Next up, we have Warden of Evos Isle. This is from one of the Masters sets. I'm not sure exactly where it hailed from before. It's a 2/2 with flying for 3. 2 and a blue. Creature spells with flying you cast cost 1 less to cast. Not too bad. Bird Wizard, definitely relevant. I would definitely put this in probably any kind of wizard deck, especially if you're playing flyers. It's good utility. That would go into like so many blue decks. Pretty decent. 2/2 flyer for 3 is really good too. See what we got here. Next up, we've got Coral Trickster. Coral Trickster is a 2/1 for 2. It's a 1 and a blue with Morph for a blue. Now the Morph mechanic is where you put a card down, and you flip it over. Back in the day when I was playing kitchen table Magic, I didn't use morph a lot. I'm not generally a big fan of it. But there was one card that I really liked when it came to the flip mechanic, and that was Exidrin. I built so many decks that just utilized like token generation or whatnot, and then I would drop Exidrin, flip all of their guys over, and then just start hitting for just crazy amounts. Because it doesn't flip tokens, Exidrin doesn't. Now this guy here would benefit from Exidrin as well, because when it is turned face up, you may tap or untap target permanent. So you drop Exidrin, it basically morphs, and you can unmorph it right after the fact. You can utilize it multiple times. Would be decent. Exidrin is one of those creatures that I would always consider, like, if you could make anything legendary, I would make Exidrin legendary. I think that would be a really neat mono blue commander deck. Anyways. Moving on to black. To black, we have Nantuko Husk. Nantuko Husk is a 2/2 for 3. It's 2 and a black. Sacrifice a creature. Nantuko Husk gets +2/+2 until end of turn. Well, this is a solid aristocrat-styled sack engine right there. Sacrifice a creature, it gets bigger. Sign me up, right? Yeah, you slap that on with the Desperate Sentry, you figure out a way of recurring the Sentry, and boom, you're making 3/2s like crazy. Moving on, we've got Skulking Ghost. Skulking Ghost is a 2/1 for 2. It's a 1 in a black flyer. When Skulking Ghost becomes the target of a spell or ability, sacrifice it. Interesting. I actually have a lot of these guys sitting in. This is reprinted from another Masters set, so I don't know originally where it came from, but it's got some like old border going on. So I'm thinking it's pretty old. I'm gonna end up doing a lot of research on all of this after the fact. That's the thing about this whole thing, is that I can't do a lot of research talking about things because I'm looking at these cards for the first time. That's interesting to note. But when Skulking Ghost becomes the target of a spell or ability, sacrifice it. This is basically very aggro, but it makes you wonder what great features that you can work with something that sacrifices itself if it's targeted. You could utilize Skulking Ghost in probably like a Muldrotha type of setting, where if you're basing off of sack triggers, you could drop this down, target it, sacrifice it, bring it back, keep utilizing it over and over again like that. Or you can figure out a way of kind of pillow forting and making sure that when this comes out, it just gets a few good hits in. Once it's targeted, it's basically asking itself to be targeted, which means you can draw attention away from other things. Otherwise, you're doing 2 points of damage regularly. You just can't target it yourself with any kind of enchantment or equipment or anything like that. So basically, it's a 2/1 flyer. Boom. Boom. Interesting. Very interesting. Let's move on to red. To red, we have Mardu War Shrieker. 3 in a red for a 3/3 Orc Shaman. It has Raid, which means when it enters the battlefield, if I attacked with a creature this turn, I add red, white, and black to my mana pool. Wow, that's interesting. So effectively, it would be cheap. It would be like a 1 cast for a 3/3, so long as you attacked with a creature this turn. Very aggro. Very interesting how it produces Mardu colors. So this would be golden in any kind of Mardu type of deck, especially if you're chaining off of, probably looking for some kind of like storming capabilities. Interesting. Mark of Mutiny is our next red card. It is 2 in a red for a sorcery. Gain control of target creature until end of turn. Put a +1/+1 counter on it and untap it. That creature gains haste until end of turn. This is really interesting. You can steal your opponent's creature, make it bigger, and then attack them with it. But then you have to give it back afterwards. So with that, you would probably want to use a Mark of Mutiny if you can take away their counter, use their counter, or sacrifice the creature after you've attacked. So good sack engines would be really good with that. But yeah, that's really interesting with the +1/+1 counter. It's a different flavor from, I mean, Reds had, creature stealing, attack, give it back type of things for ages. Alrighty, let's move on to green now. Green says Shape the Sands. Shape the Sands. It's an instant for 1 green. It says target creature gets +0/+5 and gains reach until end of turn. Wow. So if you wanted your opponent to fly, like is flying at you, if you want to stop them for a turn, boom, there you go. This doesn't seem like it would be a very good commander type of card, especially because it's an instant in green. If it was an instant in red or blue, then this would actually be probably pretty awesome, because you can recur things in blue a great deal, Archaeomancer or whatnot, in which case you'd have a strong defense on a regular basis. But then again, that's also reach. This is very defensive. And this is hailing from Dragons of Tarkir. Dragons of Tarkir. I don't have a lot of cards from that set, because I came back in missing out on Origins and Tarkir and all of that stuff. The time before that was, oh gosh, I'll have to think about that. I'll get back to you on that. The next green card that we have is Backwoods Survivalist. Backwoods Survivalist, also from Eldritch Moon. Can remember that symbol. 3 and a green for a 4/3. Kind of want a 4/4 with that, but let's see here. Human Warrior with Delirium. It gets +1/+1 and has Trample as long as there are 4 or more card types among cards in your graveyard. So it would be a 5/4 with Trample for 4, so long as you had a bunch of other cards in your graveyard. This is interesting. For an aggro deck, this could be a really interesting way of going. Again, Muldrotha, you're going to be loading up your graveyard with a bunch of things. If you're doing something more in a green-black Golgari strategy, this might be handy to have early on and then bring it back later on to make it like a little bit bigger once you've filled up your graveyard. The fact that it's a 4 cost kind of hurts it a little bit, especially in the commander sense. Because by turn 4, you want to be, making big strides. This is a big creature, but there are bigger things to drop down at that point, like your commander. All right, next up is the multicolored card. The multicolored card is called Rock's War Monk. Green, white, blue. It is a 3/4 with lifelink. And it's banned colors, 3/4 with lifelink. If you're playing multicolored, this would be a good way to go. I think the commander that I would put this card with is Ramos, Dragon Engine. This is 3 mana for a 3/4 with lifelink. It is amazing. And if you're playing Ramos, this guy is giving you 3 +1/+1 counters onto Ramos when he comes into play. So he's good defense. He activates your commander. Solid. I might consider putting this into, especially if I'm planning on steering it a little lower curve, because a lot of the spells that I have in that deck are 5, 6 casting cost, but they utilize 3, 4, and 5 colors. Interesting. Rock's War Monk. Alrighty, next up is the colorless section. The colorless section can be a land, or it can be an artifact. And in this one, we have Great Furnace, which is an artifact land. Taps for a red. This is reprinted off of a commander set, but this goes all the way back to Mirrodin block. And these were highly sought after. I don't know if they still are. I mean, it would generally probably be the Seat of Synod that is more popular than any of the others, just because it's blue and Everybody loves blue, especially artifacts. Artifacts and blue go hand in hand. Now, Great Furnace would probably work really well also in red decks, notably that Goblin that's also a Planeswalker. You know who I'm talking about. I'm going to pop him up right here. But yeah, he any kind of artifact-based red deck would love a Great Furnace. But yeah, oh gosh, we used to. One of my favorite cards when I played 60 card kitchen table Magic was the cranial plating. Now, cranial plating had a black activation cost, so nowadays in Commander it can only be played in black decks. But back in the day, you didn't have to use black to fit it into any deck, and I would fit that card into every deck because you could, with 4 Great Furnaces, 4 Seat of Synods, for whatever, and boom, you're dropping lands and building this thing up, and that's a win condition right there. It's so good, so good. All right, next up we have the older card. This one is called, it's a mythic. I got a mythic, first pack. Look at that. It is called Dragon Broodmother, and it's a Gruul colors. It's 2 red, green. So it's a total of 6 mana, and it is a dragon. It's a 4/4 flyer. At the beginning of each upkeep, put a 1/1 red and green dragon creature token with flying and devour 2 into play. And the reminder text says, as the token comes into play, you may sacrifice any number of creatures. It comes into play with twice that many +1/+1 counters on. Oh, because it's devour 2. So if it was devour 3, it would be 3 times that many. And that's really interesting. Gosh. So if you drop this guy down, and this would make a really interesting commander as well. The Dragon Broodmother. Being able to drop a token creature turn after turn, and then after a few turns, that's when you can start devouring tokens to making your dragons bigger. This is really interesting. I think I'm gonna try some things with this. This is a really fun one. Alrighty, and now the rare. The rare of this this pack is everybody's favorite Chromatic Lantern. Oh man, this is good. These are so much fun. This is one of the best mana rocks in multiplayer or in multicolored decks because it makes them all multicolored. It fixes everything. And that's when it comes to Commander, you want to ramp and you want to fix, and preferably you want to do that at the same time. And so that's what he does. And now our final card. This is the foil card. In the convention packs, you got this playtest card, but instead they replaced all the playtest cards with foil cards. And this one is a legendary creature. It is, it's gorgeous. It is Karthus, Tyrant of Jund. It is 4 black, red, and green, so it's Jund colors. It is a 7/7 flyer haste for 7. That in and of itself is amazing. That is just a powerhouse of a card. And it says, when Karthus, Tyrant of Jund, comes into play, gain control of all dragons, then untap all dragons. Other dragon creatures you control have haste. Wow. That's insane. Currently, right now, my dragon deck is a mono red Purphoros, bronze-blooded. And it's a whole bunch of dragons, red dragons, that I drop down, swing with. It's a lot of dragons that'll come into play and deal damage to all creatures. It's kind of like a pseudo board wipey type of aggressive deck. I think Karthus might be a better dragon commander than that. Now, of course, if I were to just go like, I want to go all dragons, then I'm going to do Ur-Dragon. I mean, that's what the Ur-Dragon is for. But if you want to go a little bit more specialized, and that's what I did with Mono Red, then I do recommend trying out different commanders that aren't dragon commanders. And I think Perforos, with the sneak attack ability, makes for dropping big dragons a really, really neat way of going. But you know what? That's just me, and that's my Tales of Mystery Boosters. And this has been part one. If you liked what you've seen, send me a comment down below. Like and subscribe. So far, I have 6 members to my channel, and I don't know if they're watching these things. But definitely give a like. Click on that notification bell. I'm going to be doing 23 more of these as I go through the entire box of mystery boosters. And if you have any questions, comments, concerns, let me know. I'm also doing a podcast of 5-star reviews where I review something and I give it 5 stars. So let me know what you think about that as well. I am open to criticism. So thanks so much for joining us, and I'll talk to you soon.